guys, welcome back to another episode of Soul Sessions with Steph. I am your host, Stephanie Nunez. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. So, thank you guys. I am so happy with the response that I got from last week's episode. This podcast is definitely going to be different from Ex-Wife Chronicles. So if you did tune into that one, you know that one was a little bit more shit talking, definitely more about relationships. So this one's going to be similar, but I have gotten into energy healing. So I actually do theta healing. So theta healing is a form of energy healing where we tap into your subconscious mind and we're able to pull beliefs and download new beliefs. So that has been really life-changing for me. I absolutely love it. So the direction of this podcast is definitely going to be more theta healing, transformation, mindset, and things like that. So that's everything that I wanted to talk about in my last podcast, but it just wasn't that type of podcast, so I never did that. But anyway, so my second episode, because my first episode had a guest, I am going to have guests on too, probably like once a month. I'm working on a studio. So once I get all that together and I can have guests come to me, it's going to be great. So you guys get to watch the transition from like beginning to end. That's so exciting. So our second episode is going to be about responding from the heart instead of responding from the ego. I feel like a lot of people can be very reactive. It's very easy to be reactive when it comes to friendships, partners, work. Oh my God, work is like a huge one. I can be like, I really have to sometimes tone myself down and be like, okay, Stephanie, calm your ass down. Like, this doesn't need a crazy ass response. Like, let's just gather all the information, get everything together, and then respond. And when it comes to relationships, I am 100% guilty of responding from the ego. So don't feel like you're alone, okay? Like, I do it too. So I always tell you, I told you guys on my last podcast, I jump first so you guys could walk, okay? Like, I'll jump through the fucking fire so you guys can walk. So I have really been working on my reactions towards things, towards people, things like that. But I really learned that, you know, like, we all have a spirit inside of us. We're all like, if you're a believer, if you believe in God, you know that you have, God lives inside you, you have a spirit inside you. So you have your ego side and you have your spirit side. And you could choose which side you want to respond from. For the most part, we're responding from our ego. And when we respond from our ego, our reactions can be harsh. They can be like cutthroat. They can just be like, fuck this motherfucker. Like, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind because they made me mad, and I can very much be like that. So I really had to check myself and just be like, okay, Steph, like, not everything needs a reactive response. And that is something that I've really had to work on. And I think I've been doing like an okay job. I will say I used to want to be single for so long. That was like my whole deal with Ex-Wife Chronicles. Like, I was talking about the single life. So when I finally did try a relationship or get into a relationship, I noticed all my triggers came up. Every single fucking one of them came up. And so when you're not allowing yourself to have relationships with people, yeah, you're fine, right? You feel healed. You're like, okay, I'm good. But then you get into a relationship and all your triggers come up and you're like, holy shit, I'm a fucking psycho. I'm just kidding. Only me? Just kidding. Yeah, when you get into a relationship and all your triggers pop up, you really have to look at those as like lessons learned. And all of those triggers that pop up are opportunities to respond. And you could respond from your ego, or you could respond from your heart or your spirit. Your spirit is never going to be a harsh response. It's never going to be a response. It's like an FU. It's never going to be cutthroat. It's going to be understanding, and it's going to not take anything personal. Because at the end of the day, you guys, we have to learn to keep ourselves busy. We can't put so much of our energy and time into other people to where anything that they do or any response that they give us or don't give us, that we're going to be reactive and we're going to let it fuck up our entire day. Because that's when you're like fucking up your own head and your own emotions. And I really had to learn that. Like, I really put my like the way I felt and like how my day went in the energy of other people. And that's just, it's such a waste of time. It's such a waste of energy. It's not going to do anything for you. So when you can learn to respond, to like look at your responses, and even if it takes a second, even if you're ignoring that person for a little while, respond when you're ready to respond with what you like truly want to say, or a simple okay. Like, you know how many times an okay has gotten me out of like wanting to be like blah 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 blah, blah and just like going off on somebody. So I'm a Leo, I'm a hothead. Like, what can I say? So I'm just kidding. So yeah, when you could learn that your ego mind, like literally when you hear that word, kill the ego mind, like you have to kill the ego mind and you have to learn how to respond out of your spirit. And when you can figure out and like realize that the way people respond to you is a reflection of you, you'll change it really quickly. Really quickly. So like when I, instead of like being reactive with somebody, if I can just be loving and just calm and just give like a straight it's okay answer, I notice that the way they respond back to me is completely different. The way they treat me is completely different. So I invite you to try that. Try that with your partner, try that with your friend, try that with your coworker. I know a lot of people get frustrated in work, but there's no reason to. Sometimes you're just taking things personal because, oh, I don't like the way they talk to me, or I don't like the way they came at me, or what is that? Per my last email, you know, like we can get so reactive with things that really have no reason to have a reaction. And when you can respond from your heart and respond from your spirit instead of responding from your ego, so many things are going to shift for you. So many things are going to change. Like, you have to remember, you are literally creating your reality day by day and moment by moment. So whatever is showing up for you like right now, you have an opportunity to change that, and you have an opportunity to transmute that energy. So when you can transmute that energy into something more loving and something that feels good, you're going to feel good all around. You're not going to feel like you want to be like a freaking hothead and I'm going to give them a piece of my mind because they hurt my feelings, or they did this or they did that. Like, you have to remember, everything that the people that we allow in our lives are our lovers, our friends. We don't like something they're doing, we have a choice to say like, I don't want you in my life anymore. So if you're choosing to keep somebody around and you don't like the things that they do, then you have to learn how to respond correctly. Like, period. When it comes to like work and stuff, that you do have to control, because that's your job, right? I mean, unless you decide to go a different path, and you could for sure do that. But at the end of the day, that's your job. So you have to figure out how to respond. But when it comes to your partners and when it comes to your friendships, those aren't people that you have to have in your life. Those are choices that we make every day. If you are constantly being reactive to somebody, hoping that they're going to change, trying to manipulate the situation by talking shit, or telling them like, oh, I'm going to go do this now because you're acting like this. Oh my God, you guys, when I tell you, like, I was toxic, like, oh my God, I did not think I was toxic. Okay. Like, someone would piss me off and I would be like, I'm going to go post this and this because I know it's going to piss them off. Like, I know if they look at my story, it's going to piss them off. Like, how fucking, and I didn't think I was like that, you guys. Until I got in a relationship and I was like, oh my God, like, you have so much to work on. So when you can so if you decide to keep these people in your life, triggers are not bad. Like, your triggers literally show you the things that you need to work on. So don't like, like, I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're triggering me, or that triggered me. And I get it. Like, I think you definitely should communicate the things that bother you. But if somebody is continuously doing the same thing that bothers you and you keep getting triggered, then one, you either need to step away from that situation, or two, you need to stop responding from your ego, because clearly they're not hearing you. They're not hearing what you're saying. So that's not anything that you can really change in them. Like, that's a situation where you have to realize like, okay, I need to walk away now, or I just need to respond different to get a different response from them. Next time you're in a conversation with somebody, or next time somebody pisses you off, I invite you to ask yourself, does this person deserve a like response? Does this person deserve like the energy that I'm about to put out, the angry energy that I'm about to put out, to give them like a peace in my mind? Or can I just simply be like, okay, thanks. Like whatever you got to say, to keep it short, simple, and to the point, you know? I really think a lot of us respond from the ego mind instead of the spirit and instead of the heart. And if we could learn how to change that, I think it can change like a lot of relationships in your life completely. So that's something that I have completely been working on. And I decided that I don't want to be single anymore. I want to have relationships because I need these triggers to show up, because how am I ever going to have a successful relationship if I am just ignoring the triggers because I choose to be single because all guys suck, or all guys are cheaters, or all guys are whatever the fuck we decide to say? Because remember, those are all stories that we say in our head. Those are all stories that we hear from society, like all people suck, or all guys suck, or all women are gold diggers, or whatever the fuck it is that we decide to say. You're allowed to have whatever you want. You're allowed to create whatever you want in your life, but you have to control the way you respond to things. And when you can learn to control the way you respond to things, you're going to start noticing that things start flowing into you more, things are going to start flowing into your life way more easy. The way people respond to you, the way people react to you. You guys, the way people like treat me, like just out and about, like people are so fucking nice to me just because like I know I give off like that good feeling energy. I know I make people around me feel good because I listen, I respond well. But when it comes to my partners, that's another story. But that's something that I've been working on. And honestly, I always say like God gives me heartbreak because it is like my biggest growth factor, and it really has been my biggest growth factor. But now I've had to learn, okay, it's a growth factor, but you can learn to have a healthy relationship with almost anybody if you learn to communicate, and if you learn to transmute your triggers and the things that, and the way someone responds to you. If you could learn to not react in a certain way and learn to react from the spirit instead of the ego, you're going to transform so much shit. And I've seen it. Like I've seen it in my relationships, you know? So, but sometimes that fucking ego wants to come up and wants to like sneak up on you and be like, bitch, they deserve a fuck you right now. And you really have to like control yourself and be like, nah, like they don't even deserve none of that energy. Like I'm good. I'm just going to go with the flow. It's going to be simple. And then when you're not reacting so much, you're not getting like that dopamine hit of like that back and forth toxicity. You know, you're getting a clear response. You're getting an answer. You're getting like, okay, they say whatever they got to say. You respond with an okay or simple, or you respond very kind. And if somebody is still rejecting you or still not coming through for you, then you have to make that decision and decide like, okay, like, you know what? It hasn't been that back and forth. It hasn't been toxic. So like now I have to choose to walk away. I have to choose to let this situation go. Is it easy? Sometimes, depending on the person. But eventually you either get tired of situations and then you just decide to walk away, or I don't know, you could stay in them. But the toxic love, the toxic relationship, like I don't want that. And I've never wanted that. But I have noticed that was a lot of what I knew and what I was familiar with. So that's what I was continually getting. And then I decided, okay, well, I do want a relationship, but I got to figure this out because I want a healthy relationship. I want a loving partner. I want a healthy partner. So I had to learn, okay, these triggers that are showing up, they're going to show up in every relationship, like the jealousies or the insecurities or whatever it is. They're going to show up in every relationship if you don't work on them now. So continue to work on them, you know, like, and I'm not saying stay in toxic environments. Absolutely not. Like, please don't. But if you are staying with whoever you're with, you need to learn to transmute that energy, because technically that is what you're deciding to do, right? You're deciding to stay in that situation. So if you're deciding to stay in a situation that doesn't feel good, and you're constantly trying to manipulate the situation or control the situation to better fit your needs and your wants, but it's still falling completely out of fucking control, then you have to change the way you respond. Like, that's literally all you can do. Because if you're not walking away, then you have to choose to respond differently. Otherwise, it's going to be the same cycle of the same shit over and over and over again. So, if you can learn to respond from the heart instead of the ego, I promise you things will start to change for you. And it'll just feel better. It'll feel good. You're not going to have like that icky, emotional, ugly energy coming out. You're just going to feel better. So I encourage you guys to do that. That is going to be it for this episode today. Thank you guys so much for listening. I truly appreciate it. You guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at Stephanie with 2 I's _XOXO. And you can also find me on YouTube at Soul Sessions with Steph. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys next time.